In 1915, a German scholar takes a group of paintings and strips them of their author. Max Friedlander decides the name on them is wrong and invents a label to hold them instead. Pseudo Bless, a name of embarrassment. That is the term the discipline actually uses, not forgeries. Just pictures that come from somewhere and belong to nobody. The man they have been taken from is already a ghost. No signed panel, no dated panel, no catalogue of his work exists even now. And he painted the same scene, the same procession climbing the same hill, at least 18 separate times. In one of those versions, the central rock reappears with its outline unchanged, detail for detail. Nobody explained why until 2009, and that explanation is where this ends. So the question is not who painted these. It is what he was doing to the people who bought them. It starts in Antwerp in the 1530s with a panel now hanging in Vienna, 52 by 72 centimeters. The panel is called The Way to Calvary. It was made around 1540, oil on wood, and it hangs today in the picture gallery of the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Stand in front of it, and the first impression is almost boring. A wide green world seen from above. Hills rolling back into violet and pale blue. A river, a walled town. A road curling up towards a distant hill. It looks like scenery. It is a stage, and everyone standing on it is about to be used. The man who built it has no name, not a lost name, not a disputed name, none. He is known as Harry met de Blaze, which in Dutch means Harry with the blaze. And a blaze is a white streak of hair falling over the forehead. That is the entire physical description we have of him, a mark on his head. Everything else about his face, his voice, his household, his debts, his children, is gone. In Italy, where his panels were exported and collected during his own lifetime, they gave him a second name that stuck harder, Civetta, the little owl. He hid one in his paintings, tucked into the hollow of a tree or wedged in a crack between two rocks, and Italian collectors turned the hunt into a parlor amusement. The bird became the closest thing to a signature that this man ever left behind. In 1572, when Dominicus Lampsonius and the publisher Hieronymus Koch printed a gallery of the 26 great masters of the Low Countries, the line under his portrait said only this: he worked around 1550, and his signature was an owl. So we have a painter identified by a bird, and a bird you have to find. Hold that thought, because it is going to turn on you. The workshop, at least, we can locate. Around the middle of the 1530s, a man recorded as Harry de Patineer was entered into the Guild of St. Luke in Antwerp as a master painter. Almost everyone accepts that this is our man. Almost nobody can prove it. Antwerp at that moment is the richest port in Northern Europe, and painting there has stopped being devotion and started being export. Bless ran a production floor, one hand for the figures, another for the architecture, another for the landscape. And today, no scholar can reliably separate his brush from the brushes of his employees. Here is the myth that needs killing before it does any more damage. For centuries, the books repeated that he was the nephew of Joachim Patineer, the painter who invented the Flemish world landscape and died in 1524. It is a lovely story. The Netherlands Institute for Art History has taken it apart. The only fact connecting the two men is that both were born in Dinant. Michel Wiemans, who has spent a career on this painter, is equally skeptical. He inherited a genre, not a bloodline. Now look at what he actually put inside these landscapes over and over, until it stops looking like decoration and starts looking like a system. Wiemans identified a fixed repertoire of roughly 10 elements that Bless recombines from panel to panel. A vision in the sky inside a ring of light, a fortress on a rocky peak, a watermill, a spring pouring out of stone, a rocky arch, pilgrims on a road, and the AWL. Two of those elements are not scenery at all. Look for the trees. In panel after panel, Bless sets a green leafy tree directly opposite a dead one, bare and split, and puts them in the same frame so your eye has to take both at once. That is not botany. In this period, it is the oldest moral diagram in Christian art. The living branch and the dead branch, salvation on one side and damnation on the other, planted in what looks like ordinary countryside. He is telling you the ground itself is taking a position. And then, walking through several of his landscapes, there is a blind man being led by a child, a small figure, easy to miss, moving along the same road as everyone else. In 16th century Netherlandish culture, blindness is never merely medical. It is the standard image for a soul that cannot read what is in front of it. Bless keeps inserting a man who cannot see into pictures that punish you for not seeing. That is a deliberate hand. Which brings the owl back, and it is worse than a game. Wiemans argues that the bird was never chosen as a cute maker's mark. Its meaning in that culture is double and unstable, a creature of night vision and a creature of darkness at once. His conclusion is blunt. The owl stands for the difficulty, or the outright inability, of the human mind to perceive the light of divine truth concealed behind surface appearances. The painter's own signature is an accusation of blindness, and the buyers hung it on their walls. The Dutch of the period had a word for this condition, and it exists in no other language. Ziendenblind, a seeing blind person. It comes from the line in Matthew about those who look and do not see, and it turns up in dictionaries of the time and in the morality plays performed by the rhetoricians' guilds. In one such play, from 1552, the seeing blind man is identified with an allegorical figure called the hurrying crowd, driven forward by its own blindness. Hold that word, because the Vienna panel is a portrait of exactly that disease. Bless crowded more than 300 figures onto a surface barely half a meter tall. Soldiers, horsemen, onlookers hanging off the walls of the town, spectators climbing for a better view. All of them have come to watch one man carry a cross to the top of a hill, and almost none of them can find him. One figure in that crowd is not looking where the others are looking. He is turning his head hard in the opposite direction, away from the condemned man he is escorting. Why? Leave the soldier for a moment and find the man he is supposed to be guarding. It takes longer than you expect. Christ is at the center of the panel, but he is small, dark-robed, half swallowed by a torrent of color, while the men who arranged his death ride around him in gleaming turbans and oriental silks. The painter has inverted every instinct you have about religious art. The splendor belongs to the authorities, and the subject of the picture is the hardest thing in it to locate. Behind him, linked to him by the fabric of his own clothes, is Simon of Cyrene, the man pulled out of the crowd to help carry the cross. Look at his eyes. He is not looking at the cross, or at Christ, or at the soldiers. He is looking directly out of the panel, straight at you, and he is the only person in the procession who does. Bless gives him no reluctance and no comedy, which is worth noting because other painters of these same years made Simon a squirming coward, dragged in against his will. Here he is calm, and he is holding your gaze while he carries the weight. Around Christ, the painter builds a machine out of eyes. Women stand at the edge of the road, blinded by tears, set directly against a mob blinded by appetite. Fingers point towards the small, dark figure from several directions at once. And this is where it turns unpleasant, because you cannot tell what those fingers mean. They might be indicating him so that you feel compassion. They might be the jeering gesture of a crowd enjoying a spectacle. The painting refuses to tell you which, and that refusal is the point. Now drop your eyes to the very top of the central rock. There is a pelican up there, tiny, almost invisible at this scale. In Christian symbolism, the pelican was believed to wound its own breast to feed its young with its blood, which made it the standard emblem of a sacrifice made willingly. He has perched the sign of the sacrifice on top of the rock rather than beside the man. And there is something strange about that rock. In the versions of this composition Bless painted elsewhere, the drawing stays even across the whole surface, and warm brown tones tie everything together. Not here. In the Vienna panel, the procession and the central rock are painted in warm, fine, precise detail, while the entire background landscape is loose, bluish, visibly brushed. On either side of the rock, there are odd patches of white that serve no descriptive purpose at all. The effect is that the rock floats free of the distance behind it, detached, insisted upon. He has done everything a painter can do to make you stare at a lump of stone. So return to the soldier on horseback, directly below Christ. He leans back in the saddle and wrenches his gaze away. Every other look in the picture converges on the symbolic center, the man with the cross. He alone is fixed on the perceptual center, the rock. Michel Wiemans put it precisely in 2009. The invitation this figure offers is an invitation to reverse your own gaze, or rather to recognize that you are not seeing what you were looking at. Here is what he is looking at. The arch on the right of the rock is an ear. The arch on the left is an eye. And inside that opening, far away in the distance, a crossroads sits exactly where a pupil would be. A curved outcrop below forms a snub, upturned nose. Another describes a fat, grimacing mouth. Shrubs at the top fall across the stone like a lock of hair on a forehead, and three peaks ringed with vegetation complete a headdress. The compositional center of this painting is a colossal face, seen in profile, and it is laughing. It is a Silenos. Erasmus had made that figure famous across Europe in 1508, and it is not the drunk satyr of the myths that matters here. Erasmus described small, grotesque statuettes of Silenus that could be opened, revealing a god or a precious substance inside. and turned them into a principle. A repellent shell can hide something sacred, and by exact reversal, a beautiful shell can hide something rotten. He applied it to Christ himself, mocked and crowned with thorns. Bless painted the consequence, a landscape of a mocked Christ that is simultaneously the portrait of a giant mocking face. And now, the part that stops this being a clever theory. Infrared reflectography went through the Vienna panel, and here is what it found underneath. The trees, the ordinary rocks, the vegetation, all sketched loosely, the way a working painter blocks out scenery. The contours of that face, drawn with extreme precision, not discovered afterwards, not a happy accident of geology. The monster was laid down first, in exact line, and the landscape was assembled around it as camouflage. The same precise underdrawing has since turned up beneath the beast-shaped rock of another Bless panel entirely. He painted this scene at least 18 times. The version in St. Gallen repeats the identical Silenus profile, detail for detail. That is not a motif. That is a habit maintained across a career, and nobody named it in print until 2009. So you know what he hid, and how deliberately. The question left is who he hid it from, and the answer is sitting on the ledge at the bottom of the panel, in the group of figures with their backs turned. Their spatial position duplicates yours exactly. They are you, painted into the picture, watching a crowd fail to see. At the very edge of the frame, in the margin, sits the owl. Not hidden in a hollow trunk this time, watching. Wiemans ended his study with a line that reframes the whole thing. If the owl is emblematic, it is not so much of the painter as of the painting. It is not his mark. It is the picture's own eye, and it has been open the entire time you have been looking. 500 years of visitors have walked past a landscape and seen weather and hills. The trap was never the cross, or the crowd, or the missing signature. The trap is that a painting can watch you fail and say nothing. There is another panel by this same hand where a calm estuary and a few fishermen sit under a 7-headed dragon waiting in the sky. It hung for decades in the home of a Czech architect jailed on a fabricated charge, unpublished, unrecognized, until Wiemans identified it from a photograph. On the 29th of April, 2025, it sold in Vienna for 351,000 euros against an estimate of 80 to 120,000. Someone finally found the OWL. If you want to keep looking where other people stop looking, subscribe. There are other paintings that run this same trick, hanging in daylight, waiting. See you in the next one.